Welcome to all the gay men who are flocking to this live stream, thinking they get to engage in some happy conversations. Gay intercourse. I remember in Blab days, the 8, 9, 10 years ago, 10 years, I don't know. I titled one of my blabs as gay intercourse. And I literally had a lot of gay men show up. And they were so disappointed in this heterosexual male called PineCreek. Darken. You're right. I should call this Taboo Tuesday. I want to play a clip from a couple things. I want to replay the Andrew Wilson, Matt Dillahunty clip because, number one, I made a mistake. I thought Andrew from the Crucible went first, and Matt didn't even give his opening statement, and I was wrong. So I want to play Matt's opening statement. And I made the comment that I thought Andrew Wilson's strategy was brilliant. I want to rethink that, see if I still think it's brilliant, watch it again. But first I want to play good old Tim Barnett. Oh, provides such good entertainment for us all. I'm hoping if there's any Christians here who has Tim Barnett's ear and can send him this, because I'm going to say some things here, and I have a challenge for Tim Barnett. We all like challenges, right? And my challenge for him is to repeat after me some certain words and see if he can do it. I don't think he can. But he reviews a woman's view on Christianity or whatever, on God. And I thought she made some great points. And I think Tim Barnett, like most Christians, are totally poof. So I want to get all Christians lined up in a straight line. And I want to be on a podium with a blowhorn. I'll say, repeat after me. And then I want all of them to at least say the words. They probably won't be able to comprehend them. But you'll see what I mean in a second. Here we go.
Please let me go to hell. This is a message to all the Christians on this app on behalf of all the heathens. Please just let us go to hell. Like, just let us go there. And we are asking you to let us go there so you don't have to worry about saving us anymore. You don't have to comment on everything anymore. You can let us go there. We want to go there.
She reminds me of me. Is she the female version of PineCreek?
Because every day, here are the comments that I get. Number one, I'm such an idiot for thinking that the world just popped up into existence. Because what people will do is say, I believe in God and a creator, and it makes more sense because there's creation, so there must be a creator, not realizing that they've just placed a middleman in the problem and backed the problem up a step, and they didn't solve anything. Because then you have to answer, how did God come into existence? And if God always existed without being created, then you admit that things can exist without creation. So then why can't the universe just exist? And even if you prove deism, you still have all your work cut out for you in proving that God is in any way good or interacts with the world or is worthy of worship or which one is the right God. You literally solve nothing by adding God to the mystery of existence. The most rational response to looking at the universe and the origins of the universe and the origins of consciousness is to say, I don't know, not let me ask what first century Palestinians thought, since they didn't even know that germs made us sick. Maybe we can just leave them where they are and have a modern conversation about the mysteries of the universe.
Hey, man! This makes sense!
It does. Everything this young lady said made perfect sense.
Let's just stop it there. This is actually a 7-minute TikTok video, and I'm not going to respond to the whole thing here. I just want to offer a couple of thoughts.
That's understandable.
First, it's completely appropriate for Christians to warn people of the coming judgment. After all, that's what Jesus did.
I agree.
In fact, Jesus uses some pretty graphic imagery when he tells people that it's better to pluck out your eye or cut off your hand if it causes you to sin than to be cast into hell.
Oh, see, that tells you Tim Barnett thinks hell is really, really bad. It's worse than plucking your eye out.
Think of it this way. Just as any decent person would warn someone of the dangers of taking cocaine, any decent Christian who believes in a real coming judgment.
I've never taken cocaine. Is there dangers?
judgment should warn others of the dangers of sin. Of course, someone could say, please let me overdose. All you people telling me not to take drugs, just leave me alone. Let me overdose. I want to overdose. Well, this raises the question, when do we give up on warning people? It leads to our second point. Christian, it's not your...
Okay, here's when you give up on warning people. When they've heard it like 3 or 4 times or more. Like, okay, they understand. They've been warned. Is 3 enough? Maybe just 1?
Your job to save people. Warn people? Yes. Correct people? Sure. Share the gospel? Absolutely. But there comes a time when you've done or said all you can. You can't.
Yeah, and the thing is, in the United States of America, in the year 2023, how many people are totally ignorant about Christianity and the concept of hell and sin? I'm sure there's some people, but
force people to follow Jesus. Consider another warning from Jesus, and this one is to his followers. In the Sermon on the Mount, he says, do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you.
Notice you can flip it around, and you can actually, like me as an atheist, I could say this to other atheists. Don't throw your pearls to the swine. The swine in this case being Christians like Tim Barnett. You know, we can tell them time and time again about how the universe, we're not saying the universe was created out of nothing and poof out of nothing. And I mean, at some point you just have to say, why even talk any longer, right? Why cast our pearls, our wisdom, our enlightenment? Oh, I hate that. To the swine. Now, if Christians get offended by that, hey, toughen up.
This is another powerful image. Here Jesus is referring to people who reject and ridicule the gospel. Just as a pig has no interest in a priceless pearl, some people show utter contempt for the gospel. When Jesus sends out his disciples, he says,
I agree with that. I don't. I can honestly say I don't show any contempt for the gospel. I know a lot of Christians will disbelieve that. But it's true. In order to show contempt, to have deep hatred for an idea, you have to think that idea has some veracity, some truth to it, and I don't. Like the core propositions. So to me, it's a fictional story.
if anyone will...
Like, I guess you can have contempt for the idea of Darth Vader. Although I think Darth Vader was just misunderstood. Sure, you can have contempt to the character called Yahweh in the Old Testament, and even Jesus in the New Testament, who said it's better to pluck out your eye than go to hell. But if you don't believe those characters are actually existent, how can you actually have a real contempt for them?
Not receive you or listen to your words, harass them in the comment section until they repent. No, it doesn't say that. He says, shake the dust off your feet when you leave that house or that town. He adds,
You can tell he's Canadian. Hez.
truly I tell you, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on that day of judgment than for that town. In other words, move on. God's the judge. Third, if you're going to respond to someone's public posts, remember to speak truth with grace. Don't be a jerk. Having said that, let me do my best to model that with a response to the first challenge.
There we go.
She said,
so he's going to model how to respond to the young lady who made, I think, Frank Turek even admitted she made great sense.
Is that when Christians posit God as the creator of the universe, they don't realize that they've just placed a middleman in the problem. After all, who created God? And if we admit that God has always existed without being created, then why can't the universe have always existed without being created? Well, here's why.
Here's why.
The evidence we have from modern science conflicts with the idea that the universe has always existed. Since the discovery of the expansion of the universe in the early part of the 20th century, there has been mounting scientific evidence that the universe, time, space, matter, energy, began to exist a finite time ago.
Okay, so now Christians line up in a single file, please. I'll wait. You all lined up? Okay. Repeat after me. Just because the Big Bang Theory says our universe started with our time, our space, our energy, so forth, matter, says nothing about what happened prior to the Big Bang in some type of temporal sense. Meaning that some type of material existence could have always existed outside our universe. Now, I'm not even positing the multiverse. I'm not positing anything other than we don't know, and you can't say that the universe, some type of capital U universe, cosmos, has always, always, always existed eternal past. With a different, you can even say with a different time that is different than our time. Maybe no time. Can guys like Tim Barnett fathom what I just said or not? Just because our universe, our reality had a beginning, says nothing about what happened before the Big Bang. And as far as I know, not even Lawrence Krauss says that something came from nothing in the sense of what a lot of Christians view as nothing. Now, if Christians like Tim Barnett can actually comprehend what I'm saying, that should cause you to rethink your pushback here. Right? Then that young lady who spoke prior said something very thoughtful and very true. If something material can exist eternal past like God, then why can't the universe? Capital U. Our universe is small u. Get it? I don't think they can get it. Is there anybody in the live stream chat who's confident that what I just said that they can comprehend? I understand that even the whole idea of time and prior and before doesn't really make sense because we are in time and that our time didn't exist prior to the Big Bang. But temporally, at least, that you can imagine senses of before and after the Big Bang. I feel like I need to shake the dust off my feet with some Christians, like Tim Barnett. Like, Tim Barnett's not a stupid guy. He should know that this would be the response that a guy like me would give. But maybe he doesn't. Maybe if he hears this for the very first time, he goes, oh, crap. Okay, I get it now.
Cosmologist Alexander Vilenkin makes the bold statement that all the evidence we have says that the universe has a beginning.
Our universe.
In other words, we have good reason to believe that the universe hasn't always existed. Now, could the scientific evidence be overturned one day? Sure, but we can't just ignore where the evidence currently leads. She goes on to say, even if you prove deism, you still have to prove God is good, interacts with the world, is worthy of worship, which is the right God, and so on.
Mesa Dry asks, Doug, is it possible a necessary being exists? Anything's possible in the magical kingdom? Yes. Is it possible no supernatural being exists? No necessary being exists? Yeah, that's possible too. But I think guys like Tim Barnett would say, no, that's not possible.
She adds, you literally solve nothing by adding God to the mystery of the universe. Well, hold on a second. Showing there's a creator of the universe is not nothing. In fact, it answers one of the most fundamental questions.
I agree.
Why is there something rather than nothing?
Okay. But again, this young lady, if you guys came late, you missed her. You got to rewind and watch it. You're just pushing the problem back a step. Tim Barnett's saying positing a creator does accomplish something. It answers the question, why are we here rather than not here? But I would propose it's just pushing that question ahead one. And in other words, I can push it back to God and say, why does God exist rather than not? And then a guy like Tim Barnett says, because he's a necessary being. And I can say, well, why can't the cosmos, capital C, the universe, capital U, be a necessary entity? Not a being, but an entity that just has to exist. Brute fact. Why can't I say that? I can.
Furthermore, the move from no God to a God is a massive worldview shift. Are there still unanswered questions? Of course. But just because this one argument for God doesn't tell us everything about God shouldn't cause us to just give up. On the contrary, it should bring us one step closer to the understanding of what philosophers call the prime reality. Finally, she says something like, why can't we say we just don't know? Fair question. Sometimes saying I don't know is the best we can do. But other times it shows a complete unwillingness to face the evidence. The reason most cosmologists...
Yeah, he doesn't get it. It just boggles my mind. Because she's saying, I don't know, to prior to the Big Bang. That's what she's saying. And he's saying, well, no, we do know we had a Big Bang and then our universe had a beginning. Yeah, guess what? If she was here, she would agree with you, Tim Barnett. But you're still misunderstanding her. And so many Christians misunderstand this point. It becomes like, why do we cast our pearls upon the swine? In this case, the Christians are the swine. If you don't get this, I dare, this is my challenge to Tim Barnett right now. I dare Tim Barnett to publicly state this Steelman version of what I'm saying. Do a Steelman version of what I'm saying right now. Publicly on your RedPenLogic YouTube channel. Say, okay, this is what the atheists really are saying. And so, yeah, our universe had a beginning, but that doesn't mean that some type of material existence could not exist eternal past, just like God, and is a necessary entity, just like our God. Yeah, okay, I get it now. That's what the atheists are saying. I dare Tim Barnett to say that publicly to his followers. And then you can say, but I just think it makes more sense that a mindless, a bodiless mind, a personal being did it rather than a bunch of atoms or subatomic particles or quantum energy. Fine, go there. You have my blessing. What makes more sense to you? But at least state what people who disagree with you actually are saying.
Think the universe had a beginning is because of what we have good reason to know. If a woman had good reason to know that her husband was having an affair, would it be rational for her to say, why can't we just say we don't know? No. She would be ignoring the evidence, not following the evidence. So positing the eternal...
But the evidence that you're positing right now is not getting to the question that young lady was bringing up. I don't know. This is why I'm getting tired of this. Because guys like me have been saying this for years, decades, maybe not centuries, but seems like it doesn't make a dent. I wish he was here. I wish Tim Barnett was in the live stream chat. He could just hop on. We could hash this out. I wish there was Christians who followed Tim Barnett that were here that could come on right now and just say, and I can ask, did you know this? Like, this is what we mean? Are there any Christians of the sort of Tim Barnett here right now? Tag me, and you can come on right now. Because I would be willing to talk to you before we talk about Matt Dillahunty and Andrew Wilson. I would love it. Absolutely love it. I won't shake the dust off my feet of you. I will not cast my pearls like unto swine if you're willing to talk. The stream title might scare them away. Good point, Costa Kim. Yeah. No Christian who would follow Tim Barnett would enter a live stream that's titled Gay Intercourse. But I mean, happy conversations. Do you think it's fair that Christians might get tired at you, Doug? Of me, you mean? conversing for hours with Christians, but then just wanting to see a water-soaked napkin set on fire so they feel like it's a waste of time. Sure, I bet you there's many Christians who are tired of me, just like I'm tired of them. But this stuff here, that's what I'm talking about. Like, there's, I would say, at least a third of the Christian population in the United States think like Tim Barnett. A third of the Christian population, at least. That they think, oh, the evidence is our universe had a beginning, so, you know, it's either God made it or we poofed out of nothing. That's, I'd say a third of them think that way. Could be higher. And there's only so many times you can say that's, I don't know how many times in my comment section over the years I've had to say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. And I would say, I've never met an atheist who believes that. Thus, are you a Christian willing to come on? But isn't your ultimate standard to see the napkin thing anyway, so they don't even bother? That's one of my markers. Like, there's many markers. Amputee getting his limb back, someone being raised in the name of Jesus, all ahead of time announced, and then so we can have verified tested conditions. But I think you're right, thus, that they get dejected, they get depressed, they get sad because my standards are too high. But I'm not going to lower my standards just for Jesus. I don't think Tim Barnett would want me to. I think Tim Barnett would say, yes, Doug, I love that you have high standards of evidence. So stay an atheist. I'm sure Tim Barnett would say that. Would you call Tim a silly goose? Connor, I like your last name. You're a fellow Mennonite, right? Maybe not. But Clausen is a Mennonite name. Okay, if Thus doesn't want to come on, or any other Tim Barnett type Christian, I just really want to know. I really, really want to know if they're aware of what an atheist like me would say to these types of questions or points. But thus, maybe you're an atheist, so. Yeah, Waxican, you make a good point, and I've made this point too. If demons can perform the same miracles, then I'll even ask a demon to light up my water-soaked napkin. That would still destroy my naturalistic worldview. Or a demon to raise the dead. That would still destroy my naturalistic worldview. I would defend Tim's idea. Ancient Flames, you want to come on and defend Tim? I don't know how you defend Tim here, because I think he truly misunderstood what that young lady was saying. Like, I can agree that the evidence says that our universe had a beginning. That doesn't mean that something material, like quantum energy or whatever, has always existed in the eternal past. And that, why does it exist? It just does. Just like God just does exist. No, I had gay, how long, you're wrong. I had gay intercourse when I was a Christian. I mean, I had many very happy conversations as a Christian. Someone's going to clip that. I should maybe have left a bigger pause in between so people can clip it without me laughing. Turek is worth $6 million. Don't think Tim Barnett is in that league. I don't know why people keep bringing up the fact that Turek has lots of money. Like, that's a bad thing. Like, some could make the argument Frank Turek is way smarter than you guys because he's tapped into a need of the public that they're willing to pay for. Now, the question is does he believe what he's saying? I actually think he does. I don't think he's a grifter that he doesn't believe anything he's saying. Okay, so I briefly talked about this the other day, and I made a mistake, and I apologize to Matt Dillahunty because I thought I didn't know he went first. So I'm going to play his opener for the debate, which has a better ethical foundation, secular humanism or Christianity. That's the title of the debate.
Folks, for being with us. We're going to get into our main event debate for the night. Before we do, we're going to do something different. In particular, this conference has a sponsor, which is Manifold, who we really do appreciate.
Manifold.
Manifold is the online play prediction market. So you don't use any real money. You don't have to risk any of your real money. It's just for fun, like Monopoly money. You can predict anything, including the debates we have for...
Oh, that's no fun. That's like playing poker with fake money. You can't do that. No. James, careful, James. If you listen to this, your sponsor is getting your fellow Christians hooked into gambling. And sure, it's just going to be play money in the beginning, but it's going to evolve into real money. Shame on you, James.
DebateCon this weekend. So what we're going to do is, in order to resolve who was more persuasive during the debate, is we're actually going to do a before and after poll, raising your hands. You don't have to vote. But if you happen to lean one way or the other, namely, if you think that Christianity has a better foundation...
You can't do it by raising a hand. You need some type of electronic device. I think James is trying to copy, what's that debate forum where everybody votes before, and then after the debate they vote again, and they look at the shift. That's all digitized, computerized.
Foundation for ethics, even just a smidge, or if it's all the way, then at that point, you'd put your hand up. If you're like totally 50-50, you're like, I'm truly 50, then don't put your hand up when we do the poll.
I don't want to play this, but last night, Andrew from the Crucible had a live stream where he talked about this debate. And he apparently, if you could rip this jacket off, apparently James has a huge Subway tattoo. And that, I don't know how many years ago, he entered a contest that whoever had the best Subway tattoo would win free Subway for the rest of their lives. And apparently, James won. And when Andrew Wilson flew into Texas, James asked him, "Are you hungry?" He said, "Sure. Okay, let's go eat. Let's go to Subway. You like Subway?" And Andrew from the Crucible says, "You fly into Texas, you're expecting to get like a huge steak and potatoes, but no, James wanted to take him to Subway because James is so cheap because he gets free Subway sandwiches for the rest of his life." Oh, that's hilarious if it's true.
And then if you lean towards secular humanism, even a smidge or 100%, you'd want to put your hand up when we give that option. Does that make sense? So we're going to do a percentage.
It was the first person to get the tattoo. Okay, so he was the first person to get the tattoo. I would love to see that tattoo.
Basis. So percent at the start of the debate and then at the end. And then for our online audience, we highly encourage you to check out Manifold, which is linked in the description box. You can actually vote right now in terms of who you think will win. In other words, be more persuasive in this debate by clicking on that link right now.
Oh, okay, so it is computerized. I thought they were just going to count hands before and after.
Now in the description box. Thanks so much to Manifold for sponsoring our event.
Yeah, I did it wasn't really a debate, but I did talk to Inspiring Philosophy on Modern Day Debate years ago. And who else? And also Jonathan McClatchy and a Jewish guy. There was an atheist, a Jew, and a Christian. We all walked into MDD.
By the way, last, if you want to vote in person via Manifold, you can actually use your phone camera and use the QR code.
So apparently Matt Dillahunty knew nothing of Andrew before coming on to this debate. I wonder if he did, if he would have agreed to doing the debate at all.
Or secular humanism, would you slip your hand up? And then we're going to give Chris a chance to, he's going to vote or count real quick.
That's a small room, isn't it?
Cool. And then if you happen to lean a smidge or all the way all the degrees in between for Christianity, if you'd slip your hand up.
Whoa,
All right.
not too many.
So Chris has that
This is weird. Actually, I can count by watching the guy's hand here.
towards secular humanism. Would you slip your hand up?
Okay.
And then we're going to give Chris a
1,
chance
2,
to
3, 4,
jump
5,
over
6,
count
7,
real quick.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, there's 16 secular
And
humanists
then
in
if you
there.
happen to lean a smidge or all the way, all the degrees in between for Christianity, if you'd slip your hand up.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You got it. All right.
There's only 20 people in the room. Oh, no, some people might not have voted. But 16 secular humanists, 4 Christians.
Great. So Chris has that recorded, and then we'll resolve the market at the end of the debate. But with that, we're going to kick it over.
Oh, Costa came in production, said he emailed me a picture of the tattoo. Okay, I got to see this. I know James is a very muscular guy, and I know there's a lot of gay guys here because of my title. Did you mail it to the Songbird or to the DLL? I'll check both. It's not there. It's not there. Let me check my spam box. Not there. Come on. Maybe it's a big file and it's taking some time. Okay, I'll check it once in a while.
It over to Matt for his opening statement. Thanks so much for being with us. And Matt, the floor is all yours for your opening.
Thanks so much, James, and thanks, Andrew, for being here and all of you for showing up. Humanism has as its focus the betterment of humanity in this life, while Christianity has as its focus adherence to a God and the disposition of souls in an afterlife. Our best efforts in this life are, according to the Bible, like filthy rags. Our best attempts at righteousness and justice are portrayed as vile and disgusting when compared to a bumbling God constantly failing to get his creation to love and respect him, while also prescribing the death penalty for nearly everything: adultery, blasphemy, breaking the Sabbath, disobedient children, witchcraft, worshiping another god, not being a virgin on your wedding night.
Yeah, see, I'm even getting tired of this rhetoric, because most Christians today, I'd say most, they would just say, "Oh, that's the old covenant." They'll use that excuse, or that's not the way it is anymore. Jesus didn't repeat those things in the New Testament, so it's irrelevant to Christianity. And that's the topic. The topic is about Christianity. So even I, as an atheist, am getting tired of. Well, okay, but here's the caveat. Jesus is God. God is Yahweh. Yahweh is God. Yahweh is Jesus. So you could make that link, and I often do.
Which is better for society? Well, I'd say the one that has human society as its focus and isn't so intent on killing humans for not buying into a specific doctrine. Heaven and hell, if they were to exist, aren't human societies. What a God thinks is unknown and irrelevant. There's never been a secular humanist nation, either in a governmental form, which I'm not advocating for, or in a primary philosophical view of the majority of the population, which means we have to look at the ideals between these two positions. Secular humanism has been around for 90 years. In 1933, the first Secular Humanist Manifesto was published.
Manifesto.
It identified humanism as a religion with 15 points. It was updated 40 years later in 1973 with a lot more information. And then it was incredibly shortened in 2003. In addition to the manifestos, there are organizations like the Council for Secular Humanism, American Humanists, etc. In the first version of the manifesto, it's presented as a religious view where it acknowledges there's no supernatural guarantee of human value.
I would take that further. I would say there's no natural guarantee of human value. There's neither natural nor supernatural guarantee of human value.
We advocate a heightened sense of personal life and a cooperative effort to promote social well-being. The goal of humanism is a free and universal society in which people voluntarily and intelligently cooperate for the common good.
Voluntarily. Is taxation then a part of secular humanism? Is that voluntarily, with the threat of jail time?
In the manifesto version 2, 40 years later, this includes a lot more information. Short versions, they begin by saying those who sign this disclaim that they are setting forth a binding credo. This statement reaches for a vision in time that needs direction. We affirm a set of common principles that can serve as a basis for united action. This isn't a to-do list or a thou shalt or thou shalt not list.
It's not a thou shalt not list. Okay, that's good to know. Thou shalt not prevent a trans person from transitioning. Secular humanism doesn't say that.
We're fine with religion's inspiration, but we're opposed to dogma and authoritarian views that place anything above human needs.
Whoa. Opposed to dogma. That puts it above human needs. The question is, what is real human need?
Religions don't pass the test of scientific evidence. The
True.
promises of immortal salvation or eternal damnation are illusory and harmful. Ethics and moral values.
That's debatable. I agree that the concept of hell is harmful, but the concept of heaven gives a lot of people peace and a type of flourishing here on earth, a hope.
Stem from human experience, and situational ethics stem from the human need and human interest. Reason and intelligence are the most effective instruments we possess. We are not advocating for the use of scientific intelligence independent of or in opposition to emotion, for we believe in the cultivation of...
Oh. Ugh. It says that in the manifesto? What's emotion got anything to do with it? That's the problem.
feeling and love.
Feeling and love, no.
Individuals are precious and their dignity.
Individuals are precious? Some are, some not.
Is affirmed.
Some people are not worthy of dignity.
This is important. Us, human beings, affirming the value of individuals and human beings is more powerful than a God affirming it, and it's infinitely more powerful than a human claiming a God affirms this, which is all we appear to have.
I would agree with that. Oh, actually, no, I don't agree with that last part. Because if someone is wrong about God existing, which I think they are, it gives them more gravitas. It gives them more oomph. My God says this, that you have value, so you have value because my God said so. Now, I think they can be 100% wrong, and it still helps them to place more value on people. Does anybody disagree with that? That the concept of God, like we're all created in the image of God, the Jews, Muslims, and Christians would say. I think as a default position, that does help them value people more. But then you got Muslims who say, well, you're not like us, so it's easier to kill you. Or, Christians and Jews can say the same thing. But I think out of the gate, it does help them a little.
The third version of the manifesto, in a nutshell, is so short. Whether God exists or not, we have problems to solve. We have to do this without appeals to the supernatural entities or intervention. We must utilize the best methods at our disposal. Reason and science seem to be the primary ones.
I agree.
To assess reality and reach conclusions. Justice, fairness, equality, and autonomy are the primary goals. This life, not a hypothetical afterlife, is what we're trying to improve. So what happens when religions control societies and governments, either legitimate or illegitimate? Well, conflicts with other societies and other governments may not have any reasoned diplomatic solution. You need only look to Gaza. But that's Islam.
I agree. If we could convert all of Israel and all of Gaza, all the Palestinians to atheism, the conflict may go down a scotch. But then you got other problems. Like even if they all became atheists tomorrow, if I could have a magic wand and say, all Gazans are atheists, all Israelites are atheists, they're still going to hate each other because they've killed each other's families. Right?
Judaism. Here we have Christianity as a primary and Christian nationalism. Under secular humanism, you get to be a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, gay, straight, socialist,
homophobe,
capitalist.
Oh man, I could have fun doing AI changing words.
Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, gay, straight, socialist, capitalist. You just don't get to impose those necessarily on others through acts of fiat. Not necessarily true with the religions in charge of the government. Mike Johnson's the new Speaker of the House in the United States. He's homophobic as all get out. He's argued to criminalize homosexuality.
Criminalize what?
In the United States. He's homophobic as all get out. He's argued to criminalize homosexuality. Homosexuality, by the way.
How would you enforce that? How would you, let's say you made homosexuality criminal. Are you going to put cameras in everybody's homes?
Are U.S. citizens with specific rights that he wants to take away. Moreover, he advocates for gay conversion therapy, which is unscientific and torturous because he thinks he can help them pray the gay away.
Unscientific and torturous gay conversion therapy. Trans conversion therapy. Unscientific and torturous. Is that true? Do we have hard data that, like I know in the short term, the science says that people feel better when they can transition. But do we really have hard data on long term? And what's the metric of feeling better? Like, if it's true that some Christians can do gay conversion therapy, deconversion therapy, and they feel better, let's say for the next 10 years, would Matt support that? Convincing a gay man he's heterosexual and he literally, actually feels better for 10 years. Would Matt support that? I don't know if he would.
And the gay can be eliminated. He's not anti-gay. He just wants them to cease to exist as gay. They get to keep being human beings.
See, Matt gets it. Matt gets it. Because there's many people who will say that about trans. You're denying their existence or whatever. But Matt gets it. It's no. People, when they give certain laws about no kids to transition or whatever, not saying you can't exist. It's just you can't transition until you're older.
He thinks there's no right to sodomy. Privacy laws don't protect everything, and he thinks that what sort of sex you have.
He says there's no right to sodomy. Actually, does the Constitution give the right to just normal marital intercourse? Is that a right? I guess that maybe that's the pursuit of happiness. But this whole thing about rights bothers me. It's like I have a right to do this, I have a right to do that. And technically you don't. Society allows certain things and doesn't allow certain things.
It should be his to regulate. Sodomy, by the way, is anal or oral copulation, which I have it on good authority, heterosexual folks engage in as well.
Not good Christian ones. They don't have fun. When they have sex, they turn the music really loud up and they turn all the lights off. Sometimes there's a sheet with a hole in it. Like my wife hasn't seen me pregnant yet. We're pregnant. See me naked yet. Whoa. The Freudian slip, because we're going to talk about trans coming up soon.
2022, he presented what was called the Don't Say Gay bill, outlawing any discussion of gender identity, sexual orientation.
What's funny about the Don't Say Gay bill is I bet you I can get any progressive woke person on here right now who's totally against the Don't Say Gay bill and get them to agree with specific things in those bills. In fact, the majority of the things in those bills. And so they just like to get red in the face and go like this, when really most reasonable, I'd say people on the left actually agree with what's in the Don't Say Gay bill.
Related subjects, which was incredibly problematic because he ignored what the experts have to say about age-appropriate content and how critical it is, especially for kids under 10, which was his target, to have correct
Thanks, bud. You're the best, bud. May science bless you, bud.
language in order to better report on and about sexual abuse. His policy, if it had been implemented, would have made it more traumatic for kids and more difficult for them to out their abusers and easier for abusers to get away with it. Happily, it failed. In 2015, he blamed abortions and the breakup of the nuclear family for school shootings. He also says the teaching of...
Remember, for those of you who might be nodding off, he's still talking about the Speaker of the House right now.
Evolution is to blame for mass shootings because we've taught a whole generation, a couple generations now, of Americans that there's no right or wrong, that it's about survival of the fittest. And if you evolve from a primordial slime, what is that life of any sacred value?
I do agree that with better parents, typically comes better kids. With two parents, you typically get better kids, on average. With kids, with parents who are involved in their children's lives and actually wanted them, you tend to get better kids. With parents who actually plan for the reproduction and don't have kids that they can't afford, you tend to have better kids. So the Speaker of the House is not entirely wrong here. With better parents comes better kids.
He wants student-led prayer back in school. So speak.
This I don't get when Christians say we got to bring prayer back into the schools. The scriptures, if you're a Christian, teaches that you should pray without ceasing, that you can pray without moving your lips. You can pray with your eyes open. You can pray even while you're doing math. So this whole prayer, bringing prayer back in school is just for show, which Jesus said you should pray in the closet. Like, shame on the people who want to pray for show and let everybody know you're praying. So Christians, you know this is true. And this whole thing, you taking God out of the schools. Christians, you believe that God is omnipresent. You cannot take God out of the schools. He's everywhere. Whether he's in hell, I don't know. But other than hell, God's everywhere. So you cannot, if your worldview is correct, you cannot take God out of the school system.
Are you okay with Islamic prayers, satanic prayers, or just particular Christian prayers?
Good point.
He's opposed to the separation of religion and government, sometimes called the separation of church and state. He thinks that the founders only wanted to protect the church from the state and didn't want to protect the state from the church, citing the notorious lying pseudo-historian David Barton.
That's not poisoning the well. I hadn't heard that before, to be honest. And I would have to research that. And how many of the founding fathers actually believe that or not. To protect the state from the church. To protect the church from the state, but not the state from the church.
To support this view. He definitely seeks to impose his views on others. Now, some of you are saying, hang on, he's the Speaker of the House. He's not the Speaker of Christianity.
He definitely wants to impose his beliefs on others. If you really believe something passionately, aren't we all like that? Like if you really think you're right about something and you really think this will help people in society, why wouldn't you want to impose it on others? Right? Then the question is, are you indeed right about it being good for society?
Or that's not.
Like laws itself, the creation of laws is the imposition of certain people's ideas, usually the majority, that is going to be better for society.
Not my type of Christianity. Great. But what is your type? What's your type of Christianity like? Because there's a lot of them. How is it better? And how can we make sure that we get your better version than the one that Mike Johnson wants?
Yeah, and you can say the same thing about secular humanism. What type of secular humanist are you? Because there's many types. Are you a conservative secular humanist, like some would say I am? Although I don't like the label secular humanist. Because it has usually bad connotations. Are you a woke secular humanist? Are you a progressive secular humanist? Are you progressive but not a woke secular humanist?
He thinks his version's correct. So do you. Countless denominations without consensus.
Yeah, and I think Matt would say he thinks his version of secular humanism is correct.
Already got more power than my opponent has right now. So I don't know Andrew at all. I don't know what version of Christianity he's advocating for.
Yeah, I find this very shocking and surprising. He doesn't know Andrew at all.
Didn't bother to look him up. We literally just met and said hello as I sat down here.
Didn't bother to look him up.
Is his version of Christianity better? I really hope so, because it'd be hard to get a whole lot worse. But they point to the same book. They point to the same Savior, the same history. Liberal and moderate Christians provide legitimacy and cover to hide the fundamentalists and to allow them to engage in Christian nationalism. Secular humanism
would he be against Muslim nationalism, like in Gaza?
Allows you to be a Christian right up until you try to oppose it on others, and then you get to keep being a Christian. You just don't get to practice it in the way where you're imposing it on others. You can pray, you can go to church, you can tithe, you can worship, gather, share, discuss, convert, vote based on your values. You can vote against your own best interest. I see people doing all the time. You can teach your kids your values under secular humanism.
Yep.
The foundational principles of secular humanism solve conflicts with data, debate, and discussion instead of coercion, conversion, or conquest.
Ooh. Gotta play that again and see if that sentence is going to come back to bite him.
Debate and discussion. The foundational principles of secular humanism solve conflicts with data, debate, and discussion.
Conflicts, differences in worldviews can be solved through debate, discussion, and conversation. I agree, Matt. And later we know he walks out.
Instead of coercion, conversion, or conquest. There is no secular humanist sect and no denomination of secular humanists.
Yeah, my definition of woke progressives would not fit that. Like how many woke progressive type university campuses would follow Matt's advice there? Conflict is resolved through debate, conversation, discussion. When you see kids shouting down guest speakers, I guess they're not secular humanists. They're not true ones, or a bad version of it.
Required someone to believe something that is not empirically verifiable, that's ever ordered the death of another person, that's ever ordered or acted to act or destroy property of any person or government, that has ever overthrown a democracy to impose a secular humanist regime, that's ever been connected with terrorist cells and activities, that's ever denied freedom of speech or expression.
I generally agree with Matt here, although you know what the Christians are going to say. They're going to say Stalin and Pol Pot and all these evil secularists. But I think Matt and I would agree that the Stalinists were a type of religion in itself.
For the deaths of people for criticizing secular humanism or any religious view, that has ever advocated for or inspired suicide bombers or terrorist attacks. Those things are simply not consistent in any way with the core values of secular humanism.
Yeah, if you truly believe that by killing yourself you can get to paradise if you kill yourself as a martyr, yeah, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And that problem is mostly found in Islam. Mostly. It happens in Hinduism. I'd say Christians are not to be blamed that much for being a suicide bomber. So you got that going for you, Christians.
There is no threat to Christians, Jews, Muslims, Scientologists from secular humanism. There might be from scientific skepticism and rationality if you're not able to.
There is no threat from secular humanists to Christians. Is that true? Like, I would just imagine Christians who have kids in grade 1, 2, or 3, or 4, and secular humanists saying pronouns should be taught, gender ideology should be taught at that age. And the Christian parents say no. And they say yes. And the Christian parents say no. That's a bit of a threat to the Christians who don't want that. But here's my advice to the Christians who don't want that. Don't send your kids to public schools. It's easy. Same with the drag queen hour and all that sort of thing. If you don't like it, don't moan and complain, whine. Just don't send your kids there. And then, over time, the resources that are given to that school will be sucked clean dry, if there's enough of you.
Demonstrate the truth of your claim. But life, freedom, and an equitable relationship are the foundation of secular humanism. There is no list of thou shalt not or thou shalts, because we recognize that nearly every attempt...
Yeah, that's just totally false. Thou shalt not misgender someone. See, it's a tough one, because I think Matt, when pushed, would agree. Yeah, secular humanism allows people to misgender other people. You just got to suffer the consequences if you do. I think that's what he would say, and fair enough. But the thing is, in today's society, there's no real bad consequence to misgendering people. Overall, like there's some pockets of corporate America and some pockets of society, but I think most reasonable people say, hey, you can misgender people. They might just call you a goofball, but hey, you're a goofball. There's a lot of goofballs in society.
List fails at some point as we learn more about our world and about getting better at understanding the world better, about doing better and being better in this life. The goal of humanism is a free and universal society in which people voluntarily and intelligently cooperate for the common good. If you have an objection to that, or a better...
Yeah, freely and voluntarily cooperate for the common good.
Your goal, what is it?
I agree with that, by the way. It's just, I see a lot of people who call themselves secular humanists who don't really like that free and voluntarily thing. They kind of want to go for the coercion of you must do and say what we want you to do and say. And if you don't, then we're going to call you a fascist pig and cancel you. But that's just the consequences, right?
All right, thank you so much for your introductory statement. We're going to hand it over to Andrew Wilson for 10 minutes. So thank you for being here, Andrew, and the floor is yours.
You're welcome.
Okay, I played this part the other day. I'm going to listen to it again. Last time I said what Andrew did here was brilliant. I'm going to seriously reconsider. Because I think there might be some parts I might disagree with here when I thought about it upon reflection.
Those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Wilson. I am the host of the one and only
Shaky voice there.
The fastest growing debate channel on the internet, James. I just in case you didn't know.
By the way, Andrew and Matt were paid $1,500 to be here. Well, at least I know Matt was. Well, no, I don't know. I've been told by this guy yesterday, because he offered to pay Matt's bill, and he said it was $1,500. Now, this is what I don't get from a capitalistic business perspective. If it's true there's only like 30 people in that room, how can you justify paying $3,000 for the guest speakers alone, or get the debaters alone, not counting the paying for the room and the tech and all that?
Appreciate that very much. Appreciate everybody being here. All of you are way too stodgy in this room. Very low energy. Just wanted to let all of you know that. Ladies and gentlemen of all pronouns, the Z's, the Zers, the hims, and hers, I would like to thank you for tuning in today for this exciting in-person conference on modern day debate. My name is Andrew Wilson.
Yeah, you're right. Ad revenue
There's a few
helps.
ways this debate can go. The topic is Christian ethics versus secular humanism. Which has a better foundation? The funny thing is, I already won that topic because, as Matt explained to Jay Dyer, he has no justification. under the skeptical belief structure to give an accounting for any meta-ethical presupposition he may have.
This is just the
He just
precept
kind of
stuff.
grants himself stuff. He grants himself logic, he grants himself reason, he grants himself an entire worldview, even though he's using an unjustified starting position for it.
Yeah, and I think Andrew and Jay Dyer, if you're listening to this, we would just say the same thing right back at ya. You just assert it, you just state it, you just justify it using your God. That's all. You just brute facts. God is the only justifiable preconditions for intelligibility. I can say, the universe, the cosmos, is the only proven justifiable preconditions for intelligibility. Yeah, it's a push. Why don't we just leave it as a push?
Right. So I'm not honestly all that interested in doing the God not real dough debate because one, it's boring, and two, it's also really boring.
I agree.
It goes like this. I don't see enough evidence and remain unconvinced there's a God. Then I say, but you use a theistic worldview of justification like there is a God to grant yourself logic and everything else. So instead of that, I'm just going to grant Matt's entire worldview.
This is very clever. He's granting Matt's worldview and yet is still going to defend why Christianity has a better ethical foundation than secular humanism. This I found fascinating. It's something I would do, maybe in reverse. But, and look at Matt's face here. It's like, uh-oh.
2/3 or more of the of this entire planet are all operating inside of a shared delusion that they were created by a sky daddy who loves him some slavery and murderousness. He thinks it's funny to kind of cosmically with people. That's his deal, kind of his whole thing. That's Matt's worldview. So now Matt's right, and the question becomes...
Actually, he's not strawmanning Matt. I could pull up a video where Matt says almost exactly that. There's a video where he role plays being Yahweh, and it's basically what Andrew's describing. He just loves to F with people and smite them.
Should we let them to continue to believe in this nonsensical Stone Age madness, or do we stop them from engaging in it? My contention is, even if God isn't real at all, that people acting as though he is still superior to whatever nonsensical egalitarian worldview Matt can come up with.
Okay, that's the claim. Right there in a nutshell. That pretending, or maybe not pretend is the wrong word, but believing a God exists when really he doesn't is better than secular humanism when it comes to ethics. Andrew might be right here. I'm not saying he is, but he may be right. And here's I think the strongest evidence for that. I'm a naturalist. I think we're evolved apes. Silverback gorilla. Every primate needs a leader. So for the tribe to follow, for the tribe to submit to. We have evolved this way. And I think we Homo sapiens have evolved this way to desire these supernatural, religious, spiritual, whatever you want to call it. So really, atheists are freaks of nature. I'm a freak. Super freak. Proud of it. I'm like Cindy Crawford, you know. She's also a freak of nature. So it's very interesting that Andrew is positing it this way. The thing is, the way we would know for sure is if we could somehow get the whole world to become naturalists, atheists for a time, and then see how society goes. And then compare it to how society has gone. Now, I think it would be bad to assume that if the whole world became atheist, it would be instantly better, or even over a couple generations better. Overall, it's very important. I agree with Matt that there'd be less religious wars, definitely, because people wouldn't be that type of religious anymore. But the question is, as a net overall suffering, flourishing, would it be better? And I don't think anybody could answer that question for sure with a high degree of confidence that it would be better. However, I think you can say historically, as a naturalist, we evolved for a reason to believe in to fantasize about gods and deities. It does bring comfort. It does bring hope. In fact, there's another piece of evidence I could bring up to support what Andrew's saying here. And that is, it is true, at least in Western civilizations, the more atheistic you are, the less likely you are to reproduce. The reproduction rates for atheists are lower than Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, for sure Muslims. Now, and if you define human flourishing as part of human flourishing is that you have humans to flourish, one could argue that religion is better because they tend to reproduce more. Like if everybody became atheists and we end up going to extinction because the reproduction rate falls below, say, 1.7, something like that, one could argue, well, it doesn't meet the goal of human flourishing because we're going extinct. One could even say the same thing about homosexuality. It is better for human flourishing for there to be fewer homosexuals than more, for the same reason. Like, what if 80% of the world became pure homosexuals, not bi, pure homosexuals tomorrow? No desire to reproduce through coitus, and no desire to even do the in vitro fertilization thing or whatever. We'd go to extinct, right? So too many gays is bad for human flourishing. We need the sweet spot where we just have enough gay friends to help us with our clothes. The sweet spot of gays. Now, this is gay intercourse. Happy conversations. How am I doing?
See, Matt also just acts as though the things he believes are true. He believes, and therefore acts as though logic is real, math is real. Everything is real based on his presuppositional belief that they are real. You see, human flourishing, the cornerstone of Matt's ideology and that of secular humanism, is totally meaningless. Flourishing by whose metric? From my...
Good question. And this is an excellent question. And I think this is why what Matt did by leaving is bad, because this is where what you guys could have talked about. Matt and Andrew could have talked about shared goals. What can we both agree on is human flourishing? Is there anything? And I bet you they would come to many agreements like, well, we shouldn't have a society where men or women rape children. So who cares if you're a Christian? Who cares if you're a naturalist? We can agree on this. So let's make laws says that anybody who does that, for whatever reason, goes to jail. We lock them up, castrate them, whatever you want to do to prevent that from ever happening again. I think there could be many things that they can agree on. And guess what? Doesn't matter if a God exists or not. Doesn't matter if Christianity is true or not.
My perspective, for instance, attempting to lie to people who claim men can be women isn't human flourishing. From Matt's perspective, it is. Why? Why should the collective of humanity lie and say men can get pregnant? Why should they say that men can have periods? Things which are categorically and obviously false.
Yeah. Because Matt was talking about secular humanism uses data, discussion, conversation to figure out what's true and reconcile differences. But how can you do that when you have a society that talks like what's true for you is not true for me, that truth is becoming so wishy-washy that if I want to identify as X, even though I'm not X, good for you. At some point, we have to agree on definitions. We have to agree on what is this thing we call truth.
That preserving homosexuality in society is good for human flourishing, even though they are reproductive dead ends. And that Western society and egalitarianism is superior to those evil theist society, even though the Western nations can't even reproduce their own populations, but instead have to replace their population with foreigners from those theist nations that can reproduce.
That's true. He's not wrong. As societies become more affluent, more rich, and more secular, they have less kids.
Let's start with a basic societal question recently asked of the West, who has now embraced a scientific and non-theistic approach to governing. Super basic question every kindergartner knows. If you don't believe me, go watch Kindergarten Cop. The question posed to the Western nation is, can a man be a woman? All right? To the question of if a man can be a woman, they say the answer is yes. And the way we will decree they can be a woman is by simply saying that woman now means male. Problem solved. Thank you, secular humanists.
Yeah, that woman can mean male, or a male can be a woman. But this all gets down to definitions. And what Andrew is getting at is we have a history of how words are typically used. And when you start just saying, no, we're going to change the definition of words, how can you actually progress even towards a better society when you can't acknowledge the truth? And I agree with Andrew here. Like when certain truths are not allowed to be uttered for fear of offense, that's a problem in secular humanism. To actually state that some people are not as good as other people, that's a huge red flag in secular humanism. When it's actually true, depending on how you define better. But you can very easily define better in terms of how people are treated. A person who never rapes another person is better than a person who does in that area. You can say that, right? A person who pays more taxes than another person is better in that area of paying taxes. A person who's a blessing to society is better than someone who's a burden to society in the area of finance. This is very difficult for certain types of secular humanists to admit. 50% of all the murders in the United States are committed by people with dark skin. Oh, can't say that without being called racist. It's true. Can't say it though. So if you want to be a secular humanist, you have to be able to state the truth, the data, the evidence, even if it hurts people's emotions, which is what Matt brought up. That secular humanism he said something about that takes into account people's emotions and feelings and so forth. That would be a great thing for those two to have gone back and forth on. But Matt left because he was offended. But I would love to see them discuss these types of things.
Thank you so much. Nope, not kidding. Why, you ask, would people be this over-the-top stupid? Well, it's simple. The good is the good, man. We have to do what's good for human society and human flourishing. And if you don't call these deranged lunatics, something they obviously aren't, they might self-terminate. So in order to avoid that, we need to make everybody on planet Earth lie to them. This is human flourish. Just redefine shit, pretend it's true. How laughably absurd this worldview is. Matt will often say, I remain unconvinced. Well, Matt, I'm also going to use your standard. I need for you to 100% convince me beyond a shadow of a doubt that males can have babies. What's the answer going to be? No, Andrew, you big stupid. Males can.
Yeah, Matt would say males can't have babies. Well, at least not with our current technology. But he would say men can have babies. Because the definition of man is different than the definition of man that Andrew would espouse.
Can't have babies? Men can have babies. Because we just defined man to include females, dummy. Well,
yep.
Matt, I remain unconvinced. I'd like Matt to convince me that if you are a male and you are having sex with another male, which would not be allowed in my version of a secular humanist worldview, how is it that you're not just basically having sex with a guy with a wig on? I really want to know the answer to that question. Not just me, but all rational people who aren't lunatics also want to know why it's ma'am is.
I think Matt would admit to that he's having sex with a male. I don't think Matt would shy away from that. But he would say, I'm having sex with a woman male. But then it just like sounds weird, right? A woman who's a male. So he's gay in terms of sexuality, but not gay in terms of genderality. So that answers your question, Andrew. I think I can speak for Matt.
Isn't a complete and total crock of garbage. Because I remain unconvinced that it isn't a total lie, and that these people don't just pervert the language to include their own perversions and then add human flourishing at the end. Matt has said...
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Change definitions to make them feel... The main reason why people change definitions in that context is the sense of inclusion. In fact, what's his name? That Forrest Volkai guy basically admitted this. We need to make the definition of man and woman broad enough so nobody feels excluded. And this I can't relate to. Sorry, I just can't. I can't understand why so many people are so needy that they need to feel included and normalized. I kind of like being special and different. Although I'm not. Although I am, but because I'm an atheist, but I'm still not. But if I were really special and different, I would tend to be proud of it. But so many people are like, no, I need love so badly from the world at large. I need people to accept me.
He wouldn't make a law stopping 9-year-olds from having sex with each other. Not kidding. Now, I know this is going to sound a little bit totalitarian, but I would in fact create laws that made it a crime for a 9-year-old to have sex with their 9-year-old. I would
see, and this would also be a great conversation if Matt would have stayed. Because I think Matt would say, okay, I wouldn't, you would. Let's discuss why you would and why I wouldn't. Like one argument would be if you made a law saying it's against the law for 2 9-year-olds to have sex, how would you enforce that? What would be the actual punishment? Like you could have a great conversation about this. Do you put the parents in jail? And if you do, then who's going to take care of the kids? Because Andrew, don't you believe that the parents should take care of their own kids? And if you put them in jail, maybe you do more harm than good.
hold the parents criminally liable for allowing this to happen in my evil authoritarian society, where I don't even let 9-year-olds have sex or the parents go straight to jail for negligence. Now, I think that's better for human flourishing. I think maybe parents would be far less likely to let their 9-year-olds do that if they went to jail. Stupid me. Next, I would in my authoritarian society decree that all simulated sex acts in public were criminal offenses and would make sure that all people went to prison for the crime of indecency.
Yeah, and I think we already have that law, right?
Which doesn't assist with human flourishing, and I'd like to know why I'm wrong. Secular human...
Oh, well, see, Matt would disagree with that. I'm going to try to take Matt's perspective and mine, that it would still be better for human flourishing if all sex acts, that we have decency laws or indecency laws. Now, just because two people can't do coitus on the street corner, yeah, they miss out on some fun. Some people actually love to have sex in front of a gallery of viewers. So they miss out. So they won't flourish in that instance. But overall, who wants to see that?
Feminism can basically be whatever the hell you want it to be. It doesn't really need the principle of freedom or the starting axiom of freedom and peace in order to postulate whatever it wants. It's sloganeering. They're slogans. They don't mean anything. Okay? Why do 9-year-olds need to be able to have sex in order to advance humanity? Why do we need to lie about a person's sex in order to advance humanity? Why are these things necessary for human flourishing? Why are decency laws bad? Why would Christian ethics stop flourishing when the theist mandate is to reproduce and the secular mandate is let's just all have sex and have fun, bro? That sounds way worse for human flourishing. In fact, I would say not reproducing is a worst possible thing for human flourishing, because if there's no humans, how do you flourish? So I guess, in essence, step 1, I remain unconvinced. Step 2, I need to be convinced, so I am no longer unconvinced.
Andrew is smart here. He's using this language, I'm unconvinced, because he's heard Matt use the same thing over and over again when it comes to theism. I'm unconvinced, and I don't even know what would convince me, says Matt. He doesn't even postulate markers to change his mind. So Andrew's using the language of Matt Dillahunty right back at him. I'm unconvinced secular humanism is the best ethical foundation and provides the best flourishing. I'm unconvinced. Convince me.
And step 3, but God not real dough doesn't matter here. I've already granted it to still demonstrate just how stupid this ideology actually is. With that, I'll yield my time, and I'm happy to get into it.
Hey, James, I just sent you a message.
All right. We are going to kick it into an open discussion, so 50 minutes, and let's kick it.
No, I don't think so. I'm not going to sit here and dignify the preparation that I went through and what people were here for.
You're so indignant.
Keep interrupting me.
I am.
Okay.
You're so indignant.
Would the moderator like to step in so that I can finish what I'm saying?
Please, Matt. How dare someone have an opposing worldview?
I'm not going to sit here and dignify what was supposed to be a debate about Christianity versus secular humanism, which one's better for the world.
Yes.
With someone who clearly showed up with an agenda that has nothing to do with that. Someone who refers...
See, I don't agree with that, Matt, here. I wouldn't say that what Andrew talked about here in his opening had nothing to do with the topic. It did. Andrew is saying it is, how do we know that secular humanism will lead to more flourishing compared to, let's say, a version of Christianity, even if there is no God, even if Christianity is false, 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 but people believe it's true? How can you tell me that secular humanism is better for as an ethical foundation than Christianity, that version of Christianity? He's not convinced. So convince him, Matt. And you can talk about all, like, the Speaker of the Houses and versions of Christianity that are bad, and Andrew can come right back at you and talk about all the versions of secular humanism that's bad, right? Well, maybe Matt won't agree to that. He might say there's no version of secular humanism that's bad. But he would probably have to admit that secular humanists suck at reproducing and eventually would go into extinction if it wasn't for theists. You have to give Andrew at least that one.
To trans people as deranged lunatics who will self-terminate if you dare to question them.
How am I wrong, Matt?
Yeah, okay, how is he wrong? You know, you can say that they're not deranged lunatics, but I think you would still have to admit there's some type of mental illness called dysphoria for many of them. Oh, can't call it a mental illness. You have to call it a mental disorder. Oh, you can't even call it a mental disorder? Well, then it's not anything to do with health and mental well-being, so then doctors should have nothing to do with it then, right? This is also a contradiction with the whole trans thing. that you can't tell the truth that it's a mental disorder because it hurts feelings. But yet, you need to call it a mental disorder in order to get health insurance to pay. So what do you do in that case? Is it a mental disorder or not? Is it a mental illness or not? You don't see gay people filling out health insurance forms for certain things, do you? About them because they're gay? Oh, the gay conversion therapy. Is that covered under health insurance?
Someone who misrepresents a quote from a debate where I said I wouldn't make a law about 9-year-olds having sex being legal with respect to the 9-year-olds, not that I was in any way in favor of it, and that I was...
I don't think he misrepresented you, Matt. He said that. He said you would not be for a law making it illegal for 2 9-year-olds. He didn't say whether or not you were for or against 9-year-olds having sex. I don't think.
Actually opposed to it, which I addressed during that debate. But moreover, this is not remotely an honest interaction on the front of whether or not secular humanism is valuable. Because
on whether secular humanism is value, that's not the debate. The debate is secular humanism the best ethical foundation compared to Christianity? I think even Andrew would admit that, yeah, there's some things secular humanists say that's valuable. But then he would just say, I think the Christian foundation is better overall. In other words, the best compared to the two options.
When he presented his position here, has nothing to do with secular humanism. From the get-go, it's all about me. Matt thinks.
From the get-go, it's all about me. Well, half of your opening, Matt, about half, was all about the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House says this. The Speaker of the House thinks that. The Speaker of the House says this.
Matt thinks. I'm giving what Matt thinks. What Matt thinks. What Matt thinks.
Matt's position.
I came in with the Secular Humanist Manifesto. I came in with positions that aren't just that aren't merely my positions.
Oh, well, as long as multiple people hold the position, it
this
makes it
guy's
valid.
not serious, and I'm leaving. James, if you want a refund, you
well,
let me know.
good day, sir.
Yeah, see, I would have handled that way different than Matt. I would have said, okay, let's find points of agreement between the two worldviews, and then, or main issues that are important to society, and let's one by one say which does better, secular humanism or Christianity. And I bet you Andrew would admit that secular humanism is better than the Christian worldview when it comes to religious wars in the past. Yeah, if they were atheists, then that wouldn't have happened, that wouldn't have happened, that wouldn't have happened. Probably. It all comes down to common goals. When it comes to ethics, it's about a society saying, what do we want to accomplish and how best do we get there? And it's very hard for many secular humanists to admit that sometimes theism might be the better way to do it. Like, that's blasphemy for some secular humanists to admit. I can admit that.
And I'll cover your refund, Mr.
Cool.
Matt.
He just said he'd cover my
I
refund.
would cover his refund.
No.
$1,500.
Nope. No, I'm not going to dignify a debate with someone who walked in to trash talk people and be smug and...
Yeah, this is just so ironic. I'm not going to dignify this with a response for someone who trash talked me, who's smug, when Matt himself does this all the time. Trash talks theists, smug with theists. Why not be the better man, Matt? Sit down. Try to find points of agreement. Try to take one issue. Like, if I paid Matt $1 million to keep his emotions in check, could he do it? If I paid Matt $1 million to not get upset, no matter what Andrew says, to be more dead inside, could he do it? Is there any amount of incentive that could do it?
All of the things that he's being right now. He's already said he will cover my expenses. You don't have anything to worry about. This debate is over. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Jackass.
Did you call me a jackass, Matt? Well, you and your husband have a good day, Matt. Have a wonderful day, Matt. Yeah.
See, now, I can't totally imagine myself dating a trans person. I can intellectually sort of imagine it. I think I'm the type of personality type that even if I were having coitus with a trans person, that wouldn't bother me. You and your husband have a good day, sir. I just smile and say goodbye. I mean, but I just, maybe I'm just weird. And then they go on. Andrew said yesterday that he had his own videographer there. And sometime today he's going to play it. Maybe he's already, let me check to see if he's already. And he has apparently Matt shaking and just totally kerfuffled. Let's see if it's come out yet. In other words, more of a behind the scenes take on it. No, not out yet. And I think he does he posts most of it on Rumble. He does lives on YouTube and then immediately it goes into Rumble, so YouTube can't take it away. Think of something that does personally offend you, Doug, and then compare to that. Yeah, well, I did that the last live stream. I was trying to think of something that Andrew could say that would cause me to walk off. And I brought up my sister because someone mentioned my dead sister and related it to something. But even then, I don't think in a debate setting, I'm smart enough to know if a guy's going to say something that makes him look like a schmuck, don't stop him. Take one for the team, sort of thing. So I don't even know if I would walk out. Now, but there has to be some line. And if Andrew were to say, Doug, I'm going to, after this debate, I'm going to get my AK-47 and go find your family and shoot them up. Like, at that point, you got to call the authorities and you just can't. Business is normal, right? But someone calling me smug, someone calling me an a-hole, someone calling me a fascist, bigoted, homophobic, racist, sexist, wouldn't make a dent, I don't think. I still think you handled that better than 90% of people would have. Well, with the dead sister comment? Yeah, I know. Like, the guy's autistic and maybe I need to treat him like a special needs kid. I don't know. But the thing is, like, the difference between Matt, me and a bunch of other secular humanists, atheists, is I'm not worried like they are. And I'm not sure why that is. My biggest thing is free speech. As long as I'm allowed to do stuff like I'm doing right now, as long as I'm allowed to have my own private property where my family can live and be safe and we can talk, play games, or whatever, I really don't need, now this is going to sound little, I really don't need society as much as other people. I'm okay. I've watched Young Dawn Reborn before. Yeah, with that one exactly, I knew what he was going to say, of course, and I was trying to predict your response would be, and I wasn't close. What did you predict I would say? By the way, I'll open up the room if anybody wants to call in. Oh, there's someone already here.
Hey, Doug, you there?
Yeah, I'm glad you called back.
Good. Well, no, I saw a stream a little while ago, and you said there used to be this guy who called in Rational Liberal or something like that, and I miss him. Where is he?
Yeah, you're one of the
Well,
few
can I start
touchy-feely
with
types that I like.
Well, can I start with a compliment for you to do a little touchy-feely to start?
Yeah, you pour it on.
Okay, when I get older, because I'm a very young man right now, young. I want to be more like Doug and less like Matt Dillahunty.
Oh.
And this is coming from a liberal.
Well,
Now,
you're not a
reason
true
is-
liberal if you say stuff like that.
Well, Matt had so many opportunities, and Matt regularly says he doesn't look at his debate opponents before. He should have known what he was walking into with Andrew. You knew what you were walking into. When you talked to Andrew, you did it perfectly. Not to put more sugar on you, but Matt should have expected this. What did he think? But I'm not saying Andrew was right. Andrew's, I think, a deplorable person in my opinion, but Matt walked into this. And that's my
Can we
thought.
talk about that? See, this is the difference, I think, between me, you, and the people we represent. Like, I get it that a lot of people click on my channel and they see my expressions, the things I say, how I handle my attitude, basically, and they find my attitude repulsive. Other people, they watch how I conduct things and they love my demeanor, my attitude. And I think a lot of the thing about Andrew is they see how he talks and the smugness, and it just turns them off. Whereas for me, it doesn't do anything. It's not a turn on or a turn off. It's just, it is what it is, and I can see through it, and I can listen to what he's actually saying. But do you think, like, some people, they just can't get over the presentation
Of
Andrew?
Specific on the presentation.
Like if Andrew never swore and he never smoked and wore a tuxedo and talked with a British accent, would you be more likely to listen to him?
I think he'd be vapid then. I think that's what his content is. I think he's a chain smoking, trash talking. He makes very little high level arguments. You, on the other hand, you don't smoke, you don't trash talk. I'll stop.
Much.
Much. But this is my problem. Is everyone who watches Matt Dillahunty and has become frustrated with him wishes they could have just been smug to his face and gotten Matt to hang up on them live in person. And Andrew just did every atheist experienced caller's dream of making Matt mad in person, having him leave the debate, and then having the microphone all to yourself for the next 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Andrew won.
Let me push back on you a little bit with, like you said, Andrew was vapid. Are you saying that there's nothing he said that was of value to his argument or to the debate
I am
topic?
being a little hyperbolic. Mostly vapid. I'll qualify it. From what I got from Andrew, is his argument is, if secular humanism is true, then there is no truth and anything is what we want it to be. I wish Matt had pushed back and they had debated this, and Matt had said, well, what is truth? How do we define truth? There could have been a valuable discussion, and we could have explored Andrew's positions, and then Andrew could have been shown to be vapid, but that fell apart.
Was there anything Andrew said that you thought was true?
I bet you could find some. I don't know if you want to point to something. I'm sure, and I like this. You were talking a moment ago about agreement, and I'm sure I would agree with Andrew on a few things, maybe the value of family, but Andrew does also, from what I've heard, think that I think they've said, him or his wife has said, you shouldn't be allowed to get married if you're not going to have kids.
Who said that,
So
Andrew?
I think his wife was saying it in a debate that if people don't want to have kids, then they shouldn't be getting married. Like almost our society shouldn't allow people to get married who are going to get married and not have kids.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not straw manning it, but it was along those lines.
Yeah, well, he definitely didn't talk about that. Well, at least
Yeah.
I don't think in this debate. But one thing he said in this debate that I thought he was right about is that if we're talking about human flourishing, what's better for society, one very clear metric is reproduction. And theists and Christians reproduce at higher rates than atheist naturalists.
You know what I would say? That's a good point. And then from there, we need to take care of these children. So let's look at the socialistic policies in place to put more money to children.
Okay, but that's
and we can agree that
whataboutism,
those are
right?
good.
That's about after the fact. But what I'm like,
Well,
as an atheist,
yeah.
as a nationalist, I would concede that. I would say secular humanists in the United States, especially, and Japan, Germany, they suck at reproducing. And so if everybody became like them, the world would go extinct. It might take 500 years or something, but we would go extinct.
I think it would shrink. I think what would happen is
No, it would go
these
extinct if you're
people-
below the replacement level because of natural disasters and disease. At some point, we will go down to 1 million and 100,000, and then one big tsunami comes or whatever natural climate event happens, and we're done.
True, but also a natural climate event could drastically alter the climate that no humans could survive now. That's also possible at current state.
So I would give
Possible
Andrew,
and not less, but less likely. Go ahead.
I would give Andrew that point, and I would also give Andrew the point
Okay.
that definitions matter, and truth matters, and I'm sure Matt would agree with truth matters, but what Matt might disagree on that, let's say, traditional historical type definitions in some cases don't matter, and that we need to change definitions because it might exclude some people or hurt the feelings of some people. And this is the basic difference between left and right all throughout humanity is no, it's okay to hurt people's feelings sometimes if it means like you don't always want to cater to the lowest common denominator, the smallest fragment of the population.
I do agree that it is okay to hurt people's feelings at times. Like, let's say my significant other makes a meal and I don't like the meal, and I tell them, well, that's going to probably put us down a better track where they're not going to make that meal in the future. I would think that's a better track. And I'm probably not going to make them happy by saying this meal you spent so much time on is not so tasty. But I think people like Andrew use that as an excuse to walk around with a sledgehammer, metaphorically, and start swinging it around and be like, well, I'm just hurting, I'm bumping into people here, but that's okay.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from there, and I tend to agree. But a lot of this is theatrics to help grow his channel.
Yeah.
I thought about this in the last 24 hours. I actually think Andrew Wilson's an atheist. I'm not kidding.
I think it's possible. He's probably smart enough to know how to bend people to his will and to create a crowd around him. And he knows what will bring a crowd and what won't bring a crowd. So he's using that to his advantage. When are you going to go through your theist arc?
I won't, but I mean, if you really think about Andrew, he swears like a sailor. He drinks and smokes, and he's a family guy. But even then, like, I don't know. He's definitely not a good Christian. At least,
no, I mean, yeah.
And it would not shock me if he's actually an atheist.
It would have been much better if someone could have debated him on this and maybe brought these things up and spoke to him about, morality. I mean, maybe someone should set up a debate, like a high-level atheist and debate him, right, Doug?
You want me to?
Sarcasm. No, hey, I'd be in favor of that. I was thinking.
Will Smith slapped Chris Rock.
Oh, yeah.
This is Matt Dillahunty's defending his wife/husband, boyfriend/girlfriend.
I'm pretty sure it's just his girlfriend.
No, well, it depends on definitions. Like, does it really bother you if I call Matt? What's her name?
Arden is her name.
Arden. Like, would it really bother you if I said Arden was a man? Knowing my definition of what a man is?
That's where we get into the disagreement, and
I know, but I'm not talking about the disagreement. I'm talking about the emotions and the feelings. So if
I do have an emotion to that.
Okay, I'd love to explore this.
Am I going to lose my rationality now? Am I going to be the emotional liberal?
No, it's fine. It's
I'm being
fine.
Sarcastic. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know, but this fascinates me because you know my definition of what a man is. It's an adult male, Homo sapien, and so if I just come out and say Arden is a man, on an intellectual level, you know what I mean by that, right?
I believe I do. Can I say what I think you mean?
Yeah.
I think you mean Arden's chromosomes are XY. As far as we know, I haven't checked her chromosomes.
Yeah, let's not get into the intersex argument or whatever, but yeah.
Okay.
So when I say that, my question to you would be, why on an emotional level does that make a difference? If you know what I mean by it.
Yeah, can I go for about 30 seconds on this?
Yeah, I'll give you 35.
It's because of the way people are treated in society. And if you look at what just happened to the mayor, who, whatever he identified as, that's really fine. But, he committed suicide. And when I see the way society and Andrew uses this as a weapon against Matt, so I almost think you're kind of right. I mean, if people were doing this to my significant other, I might have a reaction too. My point is, I feel like he should have known Andrew would do this. Like, you should have known full well that this is who Andrew is. This is the kind of person you're dealing with. And if your significant other, Arden for Matt, is going to know this is going to happen, like, if I didn't want my significant other to be insulted and I knew Andrew would do this, I just wouldn't engage with Andrew from the start. I think it's just poor planning to go into this knowing the type of
I agree.
Yeah. That's
I was shocked when Matt said that he doesn't know Andrew. You would think you would do some research.
1,000 people. Yeah, Andrew is getting even more attention because of this. So Matt, if you think Andrew's a horrible person and you shouldn't have debated him, I'm sorry, Matt, if you're hearing this right now, but do some research, because all you've done is give him a bigger microphone. That's all you've done through this. I mean, your thoughts on that? Like, go ahead.
Yeah, well, there's 30 people in the room, but I guess on YouTube, a lot of people will watch it. I really don't care if his channel grows or not, but yeah, I think you're right. He got a little more exposure. But I want to get back to the emotional thing.
Sure.
And I asked you, why would it bother you emotionally if I purposely called a person like Arden a man? And you said because some mayor committed suicide.
Sure, I'll give you a very specific answer on why it bothers me. I think when someone asks or says, I'm a woman, they want to be called a woman. I think, some people might be uncomfortable doing that, but sometimes we do things that are uncomfortable to us. Someone who says, okay, they're a woman, I believe that, or I'm saying this, I'm not being confrontational here, is someone who's less likely to be transgender. If you look at probabilities here, someone who's like, I'm never going to say it, they're a man, they're a man, they're a man. I'm not saying you are transphobic, but you're more likely. Does that make sense? What I'm talking about with probability here, someone who would go with it is, we can talk about, is it good or bad to go with it, but you would be more likely to be transphobic if you're like, I am not saying that, and do transphobic.
Okay, but you're assuming being a transphobic is bad. So articulate for me why being transphobic is bad.
Because being transphobic leads to more harm in society towards people who are trans.
What's your data on that?
We just had a mayor kill himself.
Okay, and how do you know the mayor killed himself because he was misgendered?
He wasn't misgendered. It came out that he dresses as a woman. He went from his church and told them this is who he is, this is who he's been, and then a few days later kills himself.
Okay, but okay, so you're saying it's not because he was misgendered?
No, it's basically just because people found out he is trans. It's not that.
So he was embarrassed. He didn't accept himself for who he was. He was embarrassed and then killed himself because people found out.
I think it's complex. I'll give you that, and there's components of what you said that are probably elements of it.
So if someone says being a transphobe is bad because it leads to people killing themselves, I want to see the data on that.
I'll try to get you it.
Because I would say that for most cases, it's not because they were being misgendered. It's because they don't accept themselves as who they are.
I think about this. Why do people not accept themselves? Because people are giving them. Yeah.
That's the question. You're not going to like my answer.
Because. Okay, go ahead. You first.
My answer is how they were raised.
Yeah,
and this ties into the Andrew Wilson Matt Dillahunty debate, because I think if you're raised at a young age with a sense of tradition and identity and who you are, and that can include trans, gay, whatever, but you are less likely to care about what other people think about you. You're less likely to be embarrassed or whatever. Yeah, I am gay, so what? Yeah, I am trans, so what? Misgender me all you want. I am strong. I know who I am, and I'm okay with it. Just please don't physically hurt me. If you are raised like that, then you're less likely to commit suicide.
And then let's look at what Andrew's morality is raising people as, where it's like a lot of Christian values are against LGBT. I'm not saying all Christians. There's just a large portion of Christianity that is against it. And so now you're being raised to say you are not this, you are not this, you are not this, which creates shame and guilt. And then if someone comes out and says, well, I am this, and then the family says you are not this, you are not this.
I get it. Like, the thing is, I don't understand, and I'm being serious, I personally don't understand it, because I've had people tell me to my face and through comment sections and whatever, I'm going to hell. And it doesn't bother me. But for other atheists, it still bothers them. And I honestly do not get this. Why are you so weak that you actually feel some negative emotion when someone says something that's entirely not true? Now,
I think you pointed out earlier. Go ahead.
Well, no, you go ahead. I've been talking too much.
I think you're right. I think it's how we're raised. And, if you come from a very strong background, like Southern Baptist, let's say, and you have a high fear of hell, and someone's says that to you, I think it could stir up some emotions. So if you're also raised in a family that says you're born male, you're born female, that cannot change, and then you go later in life, it could stir up emotions in you. But if you're born in California or something, a more liberal state, and your family's very open, and later in life you say, hey, I'm transgender, you might have no negative feeling towards yourself, no self-loathing.
And this is
I think it's all psychology.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's all psychology. It's how you've been raised and so forth. But I there's a part of me that's just so against treating adults like children. And when I hear you need to treat me use these words for me in order for me to feel safe or to feel accepted or whatever, I view that as like a child talking. And the goal of being an adult is to say, you can think whatever you want to think about me. You can even say things that you want to say about me. But you're not going to hurt me unless you actually physically punch me or take a bat to me. And please don't do that. Because I know who I am. And the problem is, I think a lot of trans people don't know who they are.
So I think there's a good solution for this, a good middle ground. I know you go for solutions, for middle grounds, for agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Doug, you don't want to use the pronouns someone wants to use if you believe those pronouns should not be applied. Is that accurate?
No, I actually, I would say 100% of the time I've used the pronouns they want.
Oh, but you don't think it should be a societal thing. You're
Right.
fine with doing it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You think societally. So how about we say to those people who don't want to use the pronouns, we all have this thing called a name. And instead of using pronouns for someone, you could just say, let's say we know someone named Amy. And they're like, oh, I think Amy, maybe you could think whatever you want. Instead of saying she, if you feel uncomfortable saying she, you could just say Amy. So
Yeah, sure.
in this instance, and I think, so if someone doesn't want to use a pronoun, I think they should just use the name, because I think we can all agree Andrew was just trying to go after Matt by saying boyfriend. Like
Right.
that was just a dig. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's the solution from one side of the story. What's the
Okay.
solution from the other side?
As in, how should my side give?
Yeah.
I think my side, personal opinion, it's quite clear that we have chromosomes, and probably a lot of us don't know our chromosomes. So when it comes especially to doctors or medical professionals where chromosomes are going to matter, we could talk about that. Now, but in relationships, when you're with someone else, that's not the thing that matters most. But
And we're talking about pronouns right now, right?
Okay, pronouns. How do you want to do pronouns?
So what you're saying my side should give by being more sensitive and using personal names.
Okay, I got one from my side.
Okay.
Here's how my side can give. If somebody messes up on pronouns, we shouldn't overreact, because they probably don't mean anything bad by it. They're not all Andrews. They probably, and
Good.
we could just say, oh, you can call me my name. That's, we can inform people of this. We can say, oh, if you want, just call me my name. That's fine by me.
Okay, good. I
I
like
like
that. But can you take it one step further? Let's say someone doesn't mess up on pronouns, but purposely knows that they want to be called, let's say, a he, and purposely says she. What's your, give me a give for your side now.
I think the best thing to do, I don't know how I can really give on this, because I think the best thing to do is, if you're dealing with an Andrew, like if I were to debate Andrew, I wouldn't walk out of the room, because I know what I'm getting. But I'm not going to be friends with a person like Andrew who acts like that towards people. And if I had friends who did that, I would tell them it's inappropriate. How do you want me to give on this?
If I was on your side with my same personality type, I would say, suck it up, grow up. There are far worse things in the world. Someone purposely misgendered you. Take it and move on. Now, if you can't, if you can't take it, and it bothers you so much that you become an emotional mess, then seriously reconsider even going out during the day, because the real world sucks and is unfair. Learn to take small steps to become a stronger person, so that when someone purposely misgenders you, it doesn't affect you that much, and you can just shake it off. And don't use this as a way to get attention and say, oh, poor is me, they misgendered me. So people say, oh, and give you resist that urge to have people feel sorry for you. That's what I would say. But that's
okay. Can you end with this though? Can you still say, you can say, you're quite a nasty person. Like you could say that. I mean, you don't need to be emotional. Like Matt could have looked at Andrew and said, after he said all the boyfriend comments, and been like, you're just quite a mean person. And that doesn't have the sting of like the biggest insults in the world, but it's just.
No, I disagree. I think it's a bigger sting. If Matt were to calmly look at Andrew and say, I think you're a vile, nasty person in a very calm, smooth voice.
Just walk out?
No, and just stay there.
Oh.
But just
Yeah.
look them right in the eye and say, in my opinion, you're a horrible person. Now, I can guarantee you, though, that Andrew, it wouldn't bother him.
Yeah.
But I still think it'd be more effective than calling him a jackass and walking out.
I agree with you, and I think that's what you want to look at, the message you're sending to the world, because I think it's tough, and you've said this many times, that the brain doesn't fully develop till mid-late 20s, and one of the last things that is developed is your ability to control impulses. So,
yeah,
it's tougher at a young age to, deal with something, where you're insulted. I mean, you see adults acting crazy in public over
this is my problem.
A beer line or something.
This is my problem. You're exactly outlining it, because I use the word feel to resonate with you. I feel I'm being asked to treat adults like children sometimes.
But I mean, some people who are transgender.
Yeah, I know a lot.
And
they all love me.
Yeah. Well, I think some like you.
The ones,
love you, maybe.
The ones I've talked to personally,
Yeah.
Stephanie likes me. I've heard her publicly say she likes me because she knows I'm not lying or being insincere. Like, I call it the way it is. I'm willing to talk about so many things. Brenda, I think, likes me. Brenda has said to me that I've helped her with this toughening up process. Although I haven't seen Brenda in a long time. So, who else? There's a young kid.
Brenda was on something a few months ago. I saw her.
Okay. And then there's a young kid came on with his mother, her mother, I don't know. Yeah. And
that was a really interesting conversation, and the mother going back and forth, and that was a very, very interesting conversation.
And there's at least 2 or 3 other conversations I've had with trans people. Usually trans people don't have a problem with me. It's the trans activists that do.
Well, and I think...
And Arden doesn't like me, I'm sure.
It's her opinion, and I dislike it when people think of you as someone like Andrew. You are far removed. You both might be conservative, but for the most part, I think you treat people with respect.
Okay, see, what you just said is an interesting difference between us. You just said that it bothers you if people compare me to Andrew?
Yeah, in the sense that they lump you into one basket.
Yeah, see, and I can swear on the Bible that I don't believe in. That doesn't bother me if someone says Doug and Andrew are of the same cloth. It doesn't bother me.
No, it bothers me when we talk about where we should focus our attention. Because if we're focusing our attention on Doug, who genders people the way they wish to be gendered, but thinks maybe there's bits of overreaction, then Andrew is the one who purposely misgenders people for a laugh and for a giggle, which is,
I'm not sure if he would do that face to face, though.
He did it to Matt's face. I don't think he would do any different if Arden.
But Matt's not transgender.
Yeah, but Arden might have been in the audience for all we know, but I bet he would have done it to her face. I don't think Andrew.
Maybe I just don't know for sure. Like, I've never seen him do it.
Yeah. Well, I have to head off in a moment, but once again, good to talk to you. Do you have any last parting questions for me?
Did you see the video I made of Mr. Deity today?
Oh, not today. I saw the one. That's where I saw. Thank you. I saw you give me that little shout out at the beginning, being like, "Oh, there was this guy." I'll watch the one from today. I just haven't had time yet.
Yeah. Because
what's it about? You want to give a quick summary?
Well, Mr. Deity made a comment on one of my videos 3 weeks ago that went to my spam box. So nobody's seen it until today, and I made it public. At least I don't think. If it goes directly into my spam box, I don't think there's a time where it's visible. But anyhow, and basically he was making the comment that because of my political views, I haven't fully deconstructed. I'm not. Yeah, he said that. And I just found this so representative of what I'll just call the woke progressive line of thought, that either you agree with my political views or you're not a real atheist, or you're not a real naturalist, or whatever you want to call it. And I just find that so pathetic, so terrible, so ignorant. And then I kind of gave him a sucker punch at the end, because 2 weeks ago, I made a prediction that Mr. Didi probably does suffer from something that helps him be more empathetic to people who are oppressed. And then today he came out with a video that said he suffers from some hypersensitivity syndrome or something. I go, that explains it. And
can I give you some advice? Go ahead.
Your advice is for me not to do that.
No. I got advice for you. You ready? You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Be more dead inside. Let me explain this. Or look at this charitably. Now, when you think of deconstructing, it's taking apart kind of what you grew up with and the ideas that have been implanted in you that you really didn't have any choice with. So I think it's true you haven't fully deconstructed. It's probably because when you started to deconstruct your house, you saw the conservative parts of yourself and maybe said, no, I'm keeping these. So you didn't remove all the furniture. You're giving me some quizzical looks.
Well, it sounds like you're saying that you can't be an atheist and a conservative, but go on.
No.
Okay.
Okay. No. I don't think of the word deconstructed as you have to deconstruct to be an atheist. I'm saying that when you were deconstructing and reorganizing the house that is you didn't take all the furniture out of the house. You looked around at the furniture and you saw some you liked. You saw your conservative views on some issues and you said, you know what, I'm going to keep this furniture. I like that couch.
When it comes to the core propositions of Christianity, I would say I did take every piece of furniture out of the house. I think not.
You still value some of Christianity.
No. Did you hear what I said? When it comes to the core propositions of Christianity, there's not a single thing in me that believes Jesus rose from the dead, was God incarnate, that heaven and hell are real. I mean, I don't know how passionately I can tell people to empathize or resonate with me that I truly don't believe any of that. And anybody who thinks that I'm going to go back to Christianity, they basically have to believe I'm going to see someone being raised from the dead or my water-soaked napkin light on fire, because that's what it's going to take.
I don't think you have the king-size bed in your house that is you of Christianity. I think you've got a little area rug. And I think that area rug might be things like more children and Christianity brings this, and that's a good thing. Because to me, this is where we had a disagreement earlier I wanted to go into more detail on. I don't think the amount of people in the world is what makes the world great. I think it's the health and happiness of those people.
I agree with you.
So I'm not going to,
Yeah.
And so I don't see like babies from families being a good thing, which is what the Quiverful movement tries to push towards. I see it as a society that takes care of the children that exist. And if we have a Christian nation right now, we're really
which is
failing.
primarily the parents' responsibility. That's where we differ.
Yeah.
Or maybe we don't. Who's primarily responsible for the well-being of children? Quick, what's your answer? Great answer. I agree. Dad, mom,
I think you asked me this
grandparents,
in our first conversation.
extended family, community, the local community, and last but not least, the federal government. If everybody had that order, I think it would be a better society.
So you'll remember this quote, and we can end with this. Wasn't it Reagan said there's nothing greater than hearing the words, we're the government and we're here to fix things?
Say it again?
No, maybe not. I think it was Reagan or Nixon a long time ago said there's no worse thing than hearing we're the government and we're here to fix things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I tend to agree with that, and it's because people who are closest to the problem are best able to fix it. People who are more removed from the problem are least likely to fix it. The federal government, when it comes to the problems of individuals, are the most furthest removed from the problem. Parents, family, extended family are the closest. Then the community, the neighbors, they're the next closest. Then the state, they're the next closest. So when it comes to a federal government solving your day-to-day problems, guess what? They're probably the worst person to ask to help you.
Well, Doug, I just have to say this because I want everyone to know you were never a true atheist, never, ever, ever. It was all. Anyways, well, I hope begin on that positive note, and I'll check out the video you did on Mr. Deity earlier and have some thoughts maybe.
Yeah, and then go to his channel and console him because he might be crying.
I'm sure he's doing fine. And he's got that amazing, he's on point with his, his facial hair and everything. So props.
Yeah, on that, yeah.
Cool.
See ya. Thanks for calling in. David Wood creeps me out because I know someone like him. Yeah, I'm not scared of David Wood. And I don't buy that whole, if David Wood was not to be a Christian any longer, he would start murdering people. He was a young kid when he took that, was it a hammer or a bat to his dad's head? I would like to think he's matured since then. I could be wrong. I guess to be safe, let's keep him a Christian, right? No, I'm not vaping. I buy keto fudgicles. They're really good. I'm probably only at like 20% confidence that Andrew Wilson's an atheist. And if he is an atheist, and if I'm right, not even his wife knows. That's how closeted he is. Yeah, I too think David Wood's funny and direct. I really appreciate those two qualities. Someone who can be funny, get to the point. Now you're in keto? No, I'm not in keto. I just like some keto foods. My wife's in keto. So there's your answer. There's keto stuff in the fridge. I would not disagree with your hierarchy of assistance and still think it's true that it is the federal obligation to enforce protections for individuals from hostile. No, I agree. We're agreed. That's what the federal government's good for. It's like the big overview stuff, foundational stuff. Man Bear Pig, I have a video on this where I mock David Wood. You've never seen it? I don't know what it's called. Let's see if I can find it. But it's hilarious, in my opinion. PineCreek, David Wood, Moon. Let's see if I can find it. Oh yeah, here it is. Oh yeah, you gotta see this if you've never seen this. Like, I should have 1 million subscribers for this video alone.
Split in two. People believed in all kinds of nonsense at that time.
No, hang on. AP, just imagine yourself back here, right? If you're sitting there, right, you're one of the people who's up at night, you're the guard, you're on guard in the city and stuff like that. You look up, you see the moon splitting in half. Aren't you going to be like, everyone get up? Look at this. Everyone, hey, you, look at that. Look, hey, you right there. Could you look up, please? That's going to be my verification. No, guys, they recorded every detail about everything that they saw happening in the skies. They recorded every time Halley's Comet came by. They recorded all these things. They would have been pretty darn freaked out by the moon splitting in half, but no one was. Why? Most obvious explanation is didn't happen.
David believes the sun stopped in the sky to allow Israel to slaughter the enemies, according to the Bible, and no one else saw it. David, what are you going to say about that?
I mean, well, just to point out, there are some different interpretations of that. But even if you go completely literal interpretation, yeah, you're kind of in a different realm of history. You're not talking 7th century AD. You're talking about what's the date? 14th century BC. So yeah, but I mean, I don't consider it. It's not the sort of thing that's being used to verify something. You know what I mean? Like, I've never heard a Christian say, we know that Christianity is true because of the miracle of the sun stopping in the sky or something like that. Again, there are different interpretations of that. Most obvious explanation is didn't happen. Most obvious explanation is didn't happen. Most obvious explanation is didn't happen.
Yeah. Most obvious explanation of the moon splitting in two and nobody saw it didn't happen. So there you go, man, bear, pig. A lot of uhs there. Do you think your marriage would be the same if you were a liberal atheist? No. In fact, I predict if I was a liberal atheist like, I don't know, Matt Dillahunty, who do I say? I would say if I were like the typical, stereotypical liberal atheist, my son would be trans and my daughter would be non-binary by now. And sad. They would be sad. And I say my kids are happy, content, know who they are, stable. Oh, like, this is a truth, a hard truth. I would love if someone did a study on that. Traditional fathers and non-binary kids or trans kids. Traditional good fathers. I'm not talking about abusive fathers. Loving fathers who spend time with their kids. Then correlate that to the degree of likeliness of the kids being depressed, anxious, trans, non-binary. I bet you there's a correlation. In fact, now that I think about it, I think there are studies on depression and anxiety and fatherhood. Maybe not the trans or non-binary thing. And I think, someone can fact check me on this, that the risks of depression and anxiety in children decrease as the presence of a father in the home increases. Someone can fact check me on that. I think that's true. If your kids weren't stable, would you take it as a personal failing? Partially, yeah. Part of the parent's job in a home is to provide a stable environment, a safe environment, a loving environment. And if kids don't have those things, they're more likely to be unstable. So if they are indeed unstable, now there's other factors, of course, but if they are indeed unstable, that's the first place you should check, is what the parents are doing. And then you can check other things like physical illness. Maybe the child is being bullied at school and refuses to tell the parents, and they're just totally unaware of it. But if you're doing your good job as a parent, you're talking to your kids. Like every day, when my son's almost graduated, he's a senior. But every day when I pick up my son from school, he drives himself now, but when I used to pick him up, the first questions I asked him, what's the worst thing that happened today? It's the first thing I ask him. What is the worst thing that happened to you today? And then he answers. And usually it's not that bad. It's like, I don't know, cafeteria ran out of hamburgers or something. I don't know. Then I ask him, what's the best thing that happened today? And then he tells me. And then a good parent can tell when the kid is hiding something or lying or not telling the whole truth or whatever. I remember a time where my son, I asked him what's the worst thing that happened, and he said, well, I ate by myself today during lunch hour. And then you liberals are going to be proud of me, you progressives. I said, well, how did that make you feel? Like, well, I needed to be alone. So it was a good thing then. Well, yeah, I mean, what was the bad thing about eating alone? Well, it's just that I can't handle the kids always gossiping about other kids. And I said, I get that. I understand. Like, these are the types of conversations good parents have with their kids. And I'll make the very confident claim that a lot of parents are not good parents and don't have conversations like this with their kids. What percentage of them? I don't know. I'm not going to go that far. But you can't deny that there's bad parents out there that don't even care about their kids' day. Or maybe they do care, but they're just so darn busy trying to make a living that by the time they get home, their kids are almost in bed. They're almost like in bed. I mean, this is why it's so great to have one parent who's not working. Would you feel like you're a failure when your kids turn out gay or trans? Gay, I would honestly say no. But trans, I think a part of me would say yes, because if you've heard what I've said and how I define trans, I'm not convinced trans exists. So trans is, how I define it, is this experience of being born in the wrong body. And so if a kid tells me they're trans, my kid tells me they're trans, they're telling me something that I believe doesn't exist. Now, they're having some type of experience, yes, but the attribution, I would say, is wrong. And there is a correlation between trans and depression, from what I read. So if that is not so much with gays, but maybe it is, but it's definitely not to the same extent. So if my kids telling me they're trans, they're telling me that they're depressed, maybe. So I would view that as being a failure. It depends on how long. Like, we all go through bad depressed times. It's like over a week, that happens. What do you think motivates people to identify as trans? Attention, or an underlying problem that might not have anything to do with feeling you're born in the wrong body. But I do think if you say that social contagion is not a thing, that attention seeking is not a thing, and confused kids seeking out attention is not a thing, I think you're delusional. Teenagers will do stuff like this to seek out attention. Like I said, my son on the drama team last year, 10 of the tech crew either identified as non-binary or trans. This year, none of them do. Now explain that to me, if it's not a social contagion. Yes, it's anecdotal. But this is still something that happened in real life. So it becomes one of these things where when someone says trans women are real women or trans men are real men, you almost have to put a comma behind and then say for now. Because the desist studies show that it's anywhere between 50 and 80% that will go away. Do you guys know that? Would you get them counseling? Yeah, I'm all for counseling and talking. That's another thing. When it comes to more serious type therapy, other than just talking, a lot of people say, well, it should be up to the doctors and the parents. And one of my first questions is, both parents or just one? I'd have a little more respect if people on the left would say it has to be both, not just one. Both the mother and the father have to agree to something more serious. I wonder how many people on the left would agree to that. Our parents that adopt real... Blaster Master, you're referring to something I said a long time ago, and I made a very strict definition. So Blaster Master 80, I bet you I can get you to agree with me on something. If I define real parents as biological parents, then would you admit that parents who adopt kids are not the real parents? If I define real parents as biological parents, you have to say, no, then they're not. And that's how I defined it. The problem, I think, with a lot of people is they will hear me say things and I will define it. And they get triggered so quickly because it makes people feel bad to say adoptive parents are not real parents when I've defined real parents in that way. Because just the connotation seems so harsh. But in that context, that's how I defined real parents. Room's open if you want to come on, Blaster Master. Yes, but do you define it that way? In a sense, yes, but in a sense, no, because I know what real is such a it can be such a fuzzy term. Like I can say trans women are not real women. I've said that, and I mean it. They're not real women. Now, what do I mean by woman? A biological female. So once you know my definition, you say, Doug is right. Trans women are not real women if you mean real women means biological. Now, if you define it as pertaining to certain roles that women do traditionally, then yes, you can be a real parent, even though they're adopted kids, a real father, real mother. Ugh, ugh, ugh. I truly believe that people need to learn how to hear things that sound triggering and condition themselves not to be triggered. In fact, someone can come on right now and test me and condition me. I'm open to it. Although you'll probably look like a schmuck because the only things that will trigger me are going to be, yeah, anybody want to come on and talk about my dead sister for like 5 minutes and I'll be stoic, and then you're going to really look like a schmuck. Why not just trans women are not biological women? What WTF do you care anyway? It does matter, Carol. whether some people, if people are real women or real men biologically. It does matter when it comes to women's spaces, privacy. There's certain areas that we say men are not allowed, and these are for women. Sports, I could go on. It does matter. And the reason why I say real women instead of biological women often is, number one, real has one syllable, biological has 5, so it's more efficient to say real over biological. Another reason is I actually like, it's my own entertainment, to say, use the word real and then see how people react. If they react with a knee jerk or if they react calmly, and then force them to ask questions like, what do you mean by real? See, a smart intellectual person, that's the first place they'll go to. They hear a guy like me say, trans women are not real women. If the first thing they ask is, well, what do you mean by real women? I view you as smart and intelligent. If the first place you go to is something like, you're a transphobe, I view you as a stupid person with 2 O's. The link's not up? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Waxican. Prisons is another one. Thank you, Stephanie. It matters if you're a real woman or not when it comes to women prisons. Most people don't realize this, but real women don't have the testosterone levels as real men. Real women don't have the skeletal body framing. Skeletal body framing on average. Most real women, I'll say all real women, don't have a penis that can get erect and poke into things. What happened there? Just noticed that a green thing went across. Having an emotional response is not an indicator of IQ. No, what you say, though, does. I will stand by what I said. If I make a statement, and the first place where a person goes is to call another person a name versus to ask for clarification, I will judge your IQ. In fact, a lot of philosophers are very smart. They're depressed, but they're smart. And the philosophers that have come on my show who are more philosophically minded, they will often, they do it so much I get tired of it. Like, it comes to a point where, they'll ask, well, what do you mean by this? And what do you mean by that? The problem I have with philosophers is they often, on the very minute things, they'll delve deep. I guess there's a balance. Triggering someone's sensitivities on purpose is bully behavior. That could be true, but I lean that if you're an adult, you should be bully proof. And if you're not bully proof as an adult, something went wrong in your child development. I'm talking about with words. I'm not talking about physical violence. Physical violence, I separate as different. In fact, some people have proposed, I'm not saying this, but some people have proposed that in the 80s, bullying was rampant in schools. It's still existent today, but there's far less. And some people have proposed that because there's less bullying now than there was back in the 80s, we have softer, more fragile adults now. and that one of the positives of bullying was to toughen kids up. I'm not saying that. Some people say that. Is it more okay to bully people who have impaired development from childhood? No. I am very much, I respect people who come on my show and say, okay, Doug, don't phrase things this way because it really triggers me. And please just treat me like a child, like you would your 8-year-old child, because this is how sensitive it is for me. I will say, oh, fine. I think Doug needs to be more resilient with people who are less resilient. Great point. But Anthony, you got to give me this. Room's open right now. Almost every live stream I have, I invite people who are less resilient than me to come on and talk to me, convince me that I should be more resilient with people who are less resilient. In fact, the caller who just was on here, the guy I like, my favorite liberal, progressive liberal. Like how many people who are polar opposite to me on the, let's say on the left, have live streams where they welcome people like me to come on? Like even Christians, like very few Christian channels welcome atheists to come on. They're like little children, a lot of them, these Christian apologists. But kudos to, what's his name? Apologia Center. He does what I do. He's one of the few. But what a lot of people who I would call woke, and they call themselves woke, they would shun me. They would not invite dialogue, most of them. Whereas any woke, what I call woke and what they call themselves woke, where we have strong disagreements, I say, come on. I'll be nice. I'll be civil. Doesn't happen. Very rarely, except for that one guy here. It's very rare. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because they're not, don't feel as comfortable behind a camera in front of people. Is it hard for you to say trans women are men? No. I can say that. I view trans women as men. They weren't very welcoming when he called the transatlantic call-in show. Yeah. If I were to do that again, over again, what would I have done differently? I don't know. You really can't do much when people deeply dislike you. And by the way, for the record, almost every claim I made, I think every claim I made turned out to be right. Now, we have differences of opinion, but the claims I made about lung capacity, I was right about. There was another one. Oh, about it never happens. Bottom surgery never happens under 18. And I said it was rare. I agreed, but no, and then Ben said never happens. I was right, he was wrong. Especially if you go worldwide in Western nations. Factually, I was correct, I think, on everything I said. Now, with the women's sports thing, that's more of an opinion argument. I say that just make it simple. There are no biological males in women's sports, period. Full stop. And intersex should go in men's sports. Full stop. And then that's my opinion. And people can disagree with that. But yeah, I tried a street epistemology approach and it failed badly because they knew where I stood. They knew, I mean, as soon as the name PineCreek is out there, right away, the people on the line, except for Stephanie, I think Stephanie likes me. Yeah, just, it's like Peter Boghossian. It's like Peter Boghossian cannot do SE with people who know him and disagree with him. It's next to impossible. Except for I would say the very intelligent ones, the ones who will ask good questions rather than just have a knee-jerk reaction. I define man as someone who is Doug or Doug-like. Mason, you're not wrong, but I mean, come on, you don't say those things out loud. It offends people. Carol, why don't you come on, Carol? Seems like we disagree on so many things. It would be a wonderful conversation, Carol. I'm actually quite the treat once you get to know me. Are you scared I'll convert you to something you don't want to be? Come on, Carol. You know the public wants it, demands it. You know, you might change my mind on something. You might actually find out you and I agree about certain things. Anthony, why don't you come on? You disagree with what I just said. And I know you're not scared of the camera. You can still do street epistemology if people know your position. Oh, I'm not saying it's impossible, Anthony. I am not saying it's impossible. It is very possible to do street epistemology if people know your position. But what I'm saying is that if someone disagrees with you strongly and doesn't like you because of your position, it is very difficult to do street epistemology. It's very difficult to have what's called that neutrality. Like if someone hates Peter for his views on certain things, I mean, well, hate's a strong word, severely dislikes Peter because of his view on trans issues. Do you think that's going to go well? It can, but if you were to bet, I would bet against. And you can bet for, but I think I'll take your money. Like imagine Arden and Peter Boghossian, and you paid Peter Boghossian $1 million to do strict SC the way you would do it, or the best person in the world do it, with Arden from the line. I will bet that will fail miserably. And you can bet it will still work well. In fact, we should set that up. You want to bet $100, Anthony? And then we'll set that up. Peter Boghossian and Arden from the line. In fact, I'll make this prediction. Even if we tried to set that conversation up as an SE thing, I'd bet big money Arden would not do it. Because she knows what street epistemology is. She knows who Peter Boghossian is, I think. If she doesn't, we can make her aware. In fact, we could even do a GoFundMe to pay Arden as much money as it would take for her to agree to it. And I'd bet SC would be useless there. Useless is a strong word, but not very productive. I can hope that you soften your heart, a whole new world, and wish you were not transphobic, a brand new place. I'm totally against, Carol, I'm totally against hurting trans people physically, which includes bottom surgery for teenagers. Oh yeah, that's a different point. NVC would... What does NVC stand for again? I should know that. Would be better with somebody who's hostile before shifting to SE. Words hurt too. I agree words can hurt. But if you look at humanity and words, how they hurt, do words hurt children more or adults more? I think most people agree children more. Why is that? Because children are more impressionable, they are more dependent, probably many reasons. My point is, the goal for adults is to become less childlike. To be less childlike and more adult-like, where you can hear things and you're less likely to be upset by it. Game at the top of the hour? 29 minutes? Yeah. I can do that. And I could do it even sooner if you want, Reed. Because nobody's calling. Carol refuses to call in because she's... I think Carol is in love with me. And she's guilty that she's in love with a transphobe. And she knows that if she calls in, shows her face, the love in her eyes will exude that everybody, the gig is up. Everybody will know. PineCreek versus Caitlyn Jenner. I know a little bit about Caitlyn Jenner, and she would probably agree with me on many things. Because I think she is a conservative. Am I right about that? See, Carol loves me. She's laughing. Carol, you should be ashamed of yourself for loving a transphobe like me. I mean, but admit it, there's something deep inside you that's pulling you to this channel. Thanks for the she for Jenner. I would still love to be, I would love to be in Caitlyn Jenner's brain and then rewatch the Olympics and just see yourself and what happened? Is there cognitive dissonance that goes on? How much would you have to get paid to go on MDD, Doug? $1,500? No, I don't think $1,500 is enough. For me to get out of my house, fly to Texas, prepare, because I would prepare more than Matt, I think. This is why I don't do debates. Is they're way too much work for, and you don't get. I think I would need 10,000. Don't tempt Carol to take the cookie from the cookie jar. Yeah, exactly. NVC is basically an expression of feelings and needs from both sides. Well, but what does it actually stand for? What does the N, V, and C stand for? I've been on MDD twice. Yeah, and it was for free. But I didn't have to leave the house. But most, or I think a lot of the modern day debates are in real person. And I think if you're going to have a debate, real in person is way better. Non-violent communication. Thank you, ShadeX. And whoever else might have said it. I'm all for non-violent communication. But I do not view words as violence. So sue me. What musical is it with the sue me, get up and sue me? That's a musical, right? It's very dangerous to view words as violence and have people become the judge of when words are violence and when they're not. Gay intercourse and not coitus, shame on you. I don't mean coitus. Gay intercourse is happy conversations. That's what we're having here. Although I'm not happy right now because Carol's not calling in. Carol is a wonderful young lady who advocates for trans rights, and she's very, very intelligent. Myron told me this. Right, Myron? Carol's very intelligent? Yeah. She's never triggered, right, by words? Right. She's intelligent, yeah. She will ask great questions rather than have knee-jerk reactions. The Home Office in Wichita, they do research on every person in the live stream chat, and that's what we got on Carol. Yeah, and she's always gracious and charitable and will steel man me. Yeah. So that's why I'm begging Carol to come on, because all our research says that she's great. See, now, if Arden at the Line can do what I just did, their show would be so much more popular. Although my show is not popular, so maybe I'm wrong. I did Modern Day Debate versus Dillahunty for free. I undercharged them. Yeah, Tyler, you're worth more than free. When you're good at something, you never do it for free, says the Joker. So, Reed, you want to go a quarter to the hour? 8 minutes? Play VR golf? If those of you who are too stingy to buy the Oculus, I highly suggest you do it. It is great. Okay, so quarter to the hour. I'll close this up. Use the loo. Use the latrine. Use the biffy? No, what's the shitter? No, I don't have to do that, but number 1. Water closet. Yes, the WC water closet. There's a great joke about water closets and comparing it to a church. And I've used it. I've been an MC for wedding receptions several times because people love me. And if you ever are an MC for a wedding reception, look up water closet and the temple, the church. And it's a double entendre between water closet and, Wayside Chapel. Is that it? If it were the case that puberty blockers and preferred pronouns improved psychological health and reduced suicides among kids who identify as trans, would your position change at all? Not with puberty blockers. If you take puberty blockers out, I would agree. Because I am not convinced that the risks and problems that potentially can be associated with puberty blockers outweigh the improved psychological health. To me, a lot of it is like a child is screaming for an ice cream cone and you give them an ice cream cone and they feel better. Like, that is basically the science of trans affirming care, gender affirming care. It's like, oh, really? Duh. Yeah, you give people what they want, they're going to feel better. But is that a good metric for improved psychological health and reduced suicides? And until I see evidence, long-term evidence, that it's more than just a temporary thing, a temporal feeling better, and that it actually reduces suicides. We don't even know that. We don't know. You can't tell me how many people committed suicide from being trans in the year 2022. You can't. The data's not there. And you can't tell me that puberty blockers will actually reduce that. There's no data on that. All you can say is it reduces the risk of suicide ideation. And even that's subjective. Everybody's thought about suicide. Well, not everybody. I'd say a third of the population has thought about suicide, but to what degree? How serious? Blah, blah, blah. Poof.